We're doing it live. Welcome back to Thinking Critical, everybody. It's that time of the week for the Comics Aficionados, your Saturday panel where we discuss, all things geek, specifically comic book related. And I got a wonderful panel. We're going to be talking about all the rumors and innuendo that maybe the comic book industry is collapsing, before our very eyes. Certainly, there is a lot of consternation, a lot of negative things happening along with the industry, and we're going to talk about that today. With me, as always, is my co-host, Doc. What's up, buddy?
Not too much. Enjoying the frigid morning.
Nice. Also with us is the critical curmudgeon himself, one of my retail aficionados. What's going on, Pele?
Not much. Just enjoying the Saturday morning. It's actually pretty temperate here right now. Feels like spring is in the air.
Perfect. Next up, Ash from Ash on Comics. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, man. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And thank you for myself for remembering to brew coffee last night. So I'm good.
Boom. He's ready, people. The other man on the panel that probably needs a little bit of coffee. What's going on, Perch?
Not too much. Having a good time. Excited to talk about this today. It seems like we talk about this a lot. So we're anxious to talk about it today.
Yeah, it's been a weird, 2 weeks. So many negative things have happened. I don't know that I consider Dan DiDio's dismissal, but it was certainly kind of out of the blue. Some people took it as sudden, as maybe indicators of bad things happening. Bob Iger at Disney, maybe not directly associated with Marvel Comics, but certainly could adjust some things as far as the overall structure there. Just a lot of weird things going on. The Shaun Gordon Murphy thing that just is happening as we speak. This is probably as negative as I've felt about the comic book industry in a couple of years now. Is anyone else feeling that way?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some good things going on in comics, but I think that there's still too much bad stuff. And I think it's not good for the long term of the industry right now.
Yeah, I don't think that people are really down as far as Didio's firing goes, but honestly, I think that they're just trimming the fat on that one. They saw they had two publishers, like, why do we have two publishers? And this guy keeps screwing up. Why don't we just ditch him and see how we do with this Lee guy for a while? So I'm thinking the more I sit and think about it, after I've calmed down and kind of rationalized, in my mind a bit, I think that's really more of the direction. I think it's just the bean counters say, why are we paying this guy a high 6-figure, 7-figure salary for whatever he's doing? And, it doesn't make any sense. And he seems to make a lot of mistakes. So let's just go with this Jim Lee and see how he does. So
I find it interesting that, for years now, people have been crying for the head of Dan DiDio. It's like, there's a hashtag fire Dan DiDio, which I've been known to flow myself. And then it happens. And then it spins around into there's a problem with the industry. The industry did something, whether they listen to us or not, they did something that we've been wanting them to do. And now that they've done it,
we're all sitting there going,
it's all falling apart.
Wait a second.
It's a weird conclusion to see people make. And it's like, usually when the industry does things that you want, you take that as a positive sign and say, oh, look, it's getting better. So it's
I danced a jig. I danced a jig when I heard it. I was just like, oh,
sure. I'm happy too. But you know what I'm saying, Pele? Like, there's a lot of people now using that as an excuse to be like, oh, AT&T's going to close all the doors and Marvel's going to buy, and like all this doom and gloom theory. And it's like, wait, but you got what you wanted. This should be you channeling that into, hey, things are looking up. It's getting better, but they didn't do that. I find it fascinating.
I think that's a good point, Ash. I think I agree with you entirely on that. I think that any bit of news right now in the comic industry, anything, is going to have the industry is collapsing implication. AT&T is missing their estimates. Then definitely the comic industry is collapsing. Somebody getting fired, collapsing. somebody dying, collapsing. It's always routing back to the industry is collapsing, and of course it's nonsense. There's lots of things that happen in the industry that we don't like, or there's a story or a hiring, or you mentioned Shaun Gordon Murphy there, Wes. So there's lots of things that happen that I don't personally like. I don't like the proliferation of all the X-Men titles. I think they went too far and too fast. It's too much. But that's different from saying the industry is dying. There's the industry, again, by no metric, historical, data, anything else, the industry has been in much worse shape at different times over the last 20 years. That's not me saying everything is perfect. It's clearly not perfect. So people need to stop conflating the two of those things together. There's lots of room for improvement. There's lots of problems. That's way different from saying the industry is about to collapse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but you almost can't avoid it. You can't avoid it if you stay away from social media and like YouTube. But if you are active in the comic book community within social media networks, it's a lot of negativity right now, and it feels like it's on all fronts. Like I feel like I'm being assaulted from every direction right now.
I think it's increasing for sure, but I think that in a lot of things in our world right now, unfortunately, there's so much polarization, so much fighting about everything, that every topic has an opportunity to be negative. And I'm not sitting here. People always say it's not terrible. That doesn't always equate it's wonderful. It's not. It's just bad news is when you get bad news that piles up on you, it tends to build and build and build. And so even things that are not that bad in news still seem scary and bad. Like Ash said, DiDio, nearly everybody wanted DiDio fired. And the second he was fired, it was amazing. These videos were going out by people that sounded like a memorial, like, oh my God, this is the most horrible day in all of comic history. DiDio has left us, and now we are left alone in the desert. And it's like, come on. I can go back 3 weeks and find videos saying that the guy should be, put into a catapult and shot into space. So let's have some perspective.
Well, the woke crowd, is of course going to pitch it from the perspective that the whole thing is collapsing because he was one of their champions in a lot of respects. So it's just.
But it was less the woke crowd as the other crowd. To be honest, it was the we are not woke crowd that was saying that imminently, within months, AT&T was going to collapse DC. Everybody's caught up in this, it feels.
People are using some, like, if you just look at it, you're like, well, AT&T now holds like the largest amount of debt like any corporation in history. But they'd also just completed one of the largest acquisitions in the history of the world. Them acquiring Time Warner was a huge buy. And it's like, where do you think the money came from? Of course, they had to go into debt. They borrowed it.
Oh yeah,
so,
their bonds right now are they're not quite junk bonds. They'll never be junk bonds as long as AT&T is AT&T, and they hold their government contracts and they have all their infrastructure in place and everything like that. But they're not nearly as attractive as they used to be. They've dropped from AAA to like A+ status, which, he's got an A+. In the bond market, A+ for really high-end bonds is not great. So the interest rates, the rates on those are going up, so, that's not necessarily a good thing when you're looking at that market. So to actually see such a titan within, the corporate world, drop to an A+ rating like that is kind of very eyebrow raising. So, I saw that it dropped from a AA to an A+. I was like, holy crap, this is not good. So
it's an interesting space for technology, and this is one of the reasons why AT&T's purchase of DC, people should look at it a little bit differently in telecom and what they're doing. There's the whole Verizon Comcast merger, and then AT&T and Time Warner, and these companies are consolidating because their old business is seen to have an end of life coming at some point. So they all have to get into entertainment. They all have to do this, which is a big reason why AT&T's purchase of DC was so critical for them, and why will they hold on to it for quite a long time, because that's seen as at least some properties they can make some money off of in the future. Otherwise, they sit back and they just let, kind of new guys, Netflix, run with it, and Disney take the other half of the share, and Amazon divide it up, and they're all just seen as a pure commodity. Remember, AT&T went through this before when they were really investing in towers and landlines, and they were seen as, hey, these other companies are going to come in and they're going to basically use your infrastructure to get rich, and you're just going to become, the roads of the world and nothing of any real value. Their business is changing, and they're having to scramble to change along with it. And I don't know if AT&T has the brightest future just for themselves, but the DC part of it, the entertainment side of it, that is the place where, that's the place where they're going to invest for quite some time, not just for, 3 months and then, 5G didn't make it. So, I mean, if 5G doesn't make it and AT&T collapses, the 5G they're talking about is their wireless network, not anything to do with DC.
Yeah, the 5G thing's pretty interesting. I'm actually pretty excited about that now after reading Flash Forward and reading the Flash 750, the epilogue there at the end. I actually think 5G is going to be pretty dope.
It has that potential. It does.
Nothing what Bleeding Cool was reporting.
I mean, I wasn't necessarily saying that the DC was the cause as far as the bond rating. That's not what I was saying. I was saying as far as their debt is shocking, and that's driving their bond rating down. But the problem with that is that any further acquisitions or any other acquisition of debt or any other bond issuances are going to be a bit more perilous for them now. They're kind of running out of places to get cash from. So it's interesting, especially if a hot property came up, like say, an IDW or somebody like that. Of course, they could probably dig in the couch cushions and buy IDW right now. But, I'm talking about, like something similar to that, they probably just wouldn't have the mobility to move on that very quickly. So
it's tough. I mean, we've turned into money talk here with Pele and Perch, but it is an interesting thing to look at. You're absolutely right in the sense that AT&T made a huge bet here with this acquisition because they had to. They were backed into a corner and they had to, and they took on a ton of debt to do it. This was their big bet. There's not really another big bet they can make at the level they just did with Time Warner. They have to live with this one for a while. So they can't go out and just buy some other media company. And for that matter, there aren't really any other media companies left at this point at that size. So we'll see how this plays out. And there will be a big battle. I think it will be at least a decade of a pretty tough battle between these entities. But back to comics, I mean, we're not back to it. It's all related to it. The industry collapsing is just it's kind of shrill nonsense. It's the world is ending guy on sign with no pants on the corner. That's how it feels to me.
Well, yeah, sometimes there's a lot of just crazy man with the tinfoil hat screaming about the CIA reading his brainwaves. But there's also some validity to some of it.
Oh yeah, there's always you can find a hint of truth in a lot of things. But we do have a super chat from Cliff Elor, $14.99. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. Comics are great for me. So many great comics from other companies. Don't care for the big two. Comic Perch and Thinking Critical. Keep up the dope work. There is so much more out there. Real talk. I totally agree with you. I'm loving independent comics right now. I've been pushing the Kill Lock so hard right now. It's from IDW. It's one of the coolest sci-fi comics I've read in a long time. It's from Livio Ramondelli. He's like a veteran Transformers artist, and it's about robots. So the visuals are as good as it gets, and the story is really great. Ash, what kind of independent comics are you reading right now that are awesome?
Well, I feel like a broken record here, but I love to talk about Ascender, Jeff Lemire's epic space fantasy of humans versus robots. And if you're not reading it, you should be. It's fun. Oblivion Song is fantastic. Birthright. I just recently picked up Blade Runner. I can't find issue 1 God, that is hard to find. It stinks about, modern comics, about these tiny print runs.
Yep,
Even comics, even these
Left
comics
now
that don't necessarily have huge key value or whatever, they have their little fans, and it's like no one wants to get rid of their book, and you're like, I just want a Blade Runner #1, and it's like, no, you can't have it. You missed out. So,
yeah, Blade Runner 2019 was awesome. Really enjoyed that one. Who else got an independent comic book that they think is just dope and better than what the big two are doing right now?
I really enjoyed Everglades Angels by Blake Northcott and Scott Lobdell, that they self-published, and I think it was really a fun, good story. Really the only indie stuff I've read recently.
I mean, there's a ton of stuff out there. The cool part about the indie market, whether you're going to a store, you're on Kickstarter, Indiegogo, wherever you happen to be going, there is something for everyone. I mean, the shame of it is, and people have rightly complained about it, you have to dig in some cases to find it. But if you have a genre in mind, you have a kind of story you like in mind, you could probably hunt it out and find it, because there is so much proliferation. There's a great amount of horror books that are going out right now that's really come up in the last several years. Sci-fi has gotten really clever, really nice. So, I mean, the bad part about the industry is that we do not have a good aggregator to get these books to people. You have to hunt them down and find them. But there's a lot of really great stuff. And there's been for a while. I think that I've been promising Rags that I've been promoting. I would do a video of his book. That's something to go see as well. I mean, any way you turn, there's something to go check out.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. We're seeing Skull Digger and Skeleton Boy from Dark Horse. That's another Jeff Lemire book in the Black Hammer universe. That's a great book. I'm definitely enjoying that one. Black Stars Above from Vault Comics. Thank you very much, Chase. Great recommendation right there. That one's a lot of fun. Yule Carter is saying Copra is great. That's one I haven't read yet. Definitely need to get on top of that one.
Punchline's still great.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be remiss if I did not bring up my boy Usagi Yojimbo. Yeah, I don't know why it always slips my mind. It's one of the greatest comics ever.
Yeah, so definitely agree with you, Cliff Elord. Great independent comics out there that I think we're all enjoying right now. I've soured on the big two a little bit, specifically DC, although I'm looking to jump back in because I think the direction they're going with 5G might actually be really good. But I'm definitely reading more indies right now, and I'm loving it personally. So another thing that's kind of going on right now is we're seeing the continued issues with IDW. They're like the fourth largest independent comic publisher, in America. That would be a huge loss. I know we've talked about it on the channel, Perch. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to do a broken record with you, but Doc, does that make you worried when you see a company that's in the top 5 that might no longer exist in the next 24 months?
Yeah, it does. I mean, obviously, whatever little assets they have are going to get sold off if they end up, going that way. But I when you're doing something that's obviously losing you money for so long, why do you keep doing it? That's the thing that I just don't understand. And maybe it's just because you have a bunch of people that are in a creative field and a lot of them are just terrible at business. They think that their idea, it's just a matter of time before it catches on. And maybe that's what the case with IDW. But everybody with any amount of foresight could see this 3 years ago when they were just losing money hand over fist month after month. Their TV, I mean, I watched the Lock and Key Netflix show. It was all right. I didn't mind it. I never read the comics, so I didn't really have anything to compare it to. It was fun. It was okay. I'll probably watch a season 2 if it gets picked up. But you have a lot of companies, especially companies like IDW, that get too, I guess you could say they get too big for their britches and think that they can jump into a much bigger pond instead of focusing on what their core business is. And they're core business is still supposed to be about making comics and comic related stuff.
Yeah, it's too bad they didn't stick with the licensed comic thing as being their main. They just try to jump into the streaming thing without any IP that would be recognizable to people, and then they fund it all themselves. It was a bad idea. So Perch, I don't really know the answer to this one, but Jeremy Lott is asking, what is Image Comics' financial position at the moment? As far as I know, they're healthy. Are they? Is that the case?
Yeah, they're healthy. I mean, their business model is structured in such a way that they can they diversify what they do. They market very specialized products that they know will go well, so they don't overextend themselves on books. Image is fine. They're in a very stable number 3, and in many ways they have some benefits in that they have complete control over their cash flow. They don't have a corporate master on top of them that's really doing their thing, and they're not over leveraged on deals. I mean, IDW's risk, as we have talked about before, is that they have to get these media deals out. If they stop getting those, they're in a lot of trouble. That's how they are built now. Image does not have that problem. They've worked out a good balance, and it took them a while to get there. People always, I think, they believe that in the 90s, Image was founded, and then it was just gravy from that every moment on. But there was a huge point in the middle there where Image, dipped nearly. I mean, no one nearly went out, but certainly were in some peril, and then came back, and they're decently strong. They probably have a model that works for them. It's also probably a model that would be tough to replicate by an incomer, because they would have to go through that growing pain to get there. But they're doing fine.
So we do have another super chat from Atomic Hound. I think we can agree we are not in collapse. I do agree with that. But who or what would you say are the 4 horsemen to watch out for? Signs of the apocalypse. One of the things I would definitely look out for, and we have seen a little bit with Rob Liefeld, going on social media being insane and relaying a story where there was some like a Marvel artist that wasn't getting paid, or maybe he had gotten 2 paychecks in like a 10-month period, and they had missed 8. So I think if we start seeing a lot of people not getting paid, that would be a very bad sign. Although it does sound like that might have been an accounting error. Pele, what would you say would be some of the signs of the apocalypse if we were actually going to see a collapse?
You'd see a really sharp shrinkage of the number of titles over a short period of time. Consolidation of titles. You'd see a lot of firing as far as management's concerned, middle management especially, as they try to shrink those fairly high paying jobs that not going to say they don't do anything, but that could be expendable. You see a lot of people just across the board kind of where they'd be paring down their positions. Don't see that yet. Although DC did pull back a lot of their titles, I don't, below the 72 titles, or was it 52 titles, right?
But they kind of already went back to normal.
Yeah, but that, and then that was just short lived. But would you start seeing, a lot of people just falling off, that are in those middle management positions, or, you start seeing, the titles sharply cut back, like over a span of just a couple months, like a dozen or more titles being cut, then I think you can definitely see that the writing would be kind of be on the wall. But until then, I wouldn't really think that.
Ash, what would start tingling your spidey sense as far as an imminent market collapses for comic books? What would you start seeing that would get you really nervous?
Outsourcing. When you start seeing, and this is one of the things that I've said is a huge red flag at Marvel for a while, when you start taking your characters, if you start seeing IDW doing Superman comics, or other places doing these, it doesn't mean imminent collapse, but it does mean that this could be a bad sign. It could be a sign of the parent companies testing the waters and saying, do we really need to publish in-house? Can we just keep our IP and just have a small company that manages that IP and then licenses it out third party? Like some of these other things, you look at the Conan group, right? I mean, Conan's obviously way smaller than Marvel or DC, but it's how it's worked. They don't do anything themselves. They have a little small, probably one person and manages it. I'd imagine, I don't know, and they let other people license out their work and do it, and that could theoretically happen, I believe, with the comics industry, and that would be something that would definitely alert me if that started happening.
All right, Doc, what would freak you out, buddy?
A sharp decline in the consumer market on buying into variants and events, special editions, number one, stuff like that. If the market
collectors exiting the market,
yes, collectors no longer falling for the bait that Marvel and DC are doing with constant relaunches, constant variants, number ones, blah blah blah. That is going to, because it's going to immediately, it'll harm the stores, and then because right now they don't have a plan. None of the publishers have a plan story-wise to keep numbers up once their basically collector bait tricks stop working. If they have to actually they need to come up with a plan for it, because I've been saying it for a couple of years. All of their sales strategies are short-term sales strategies being used as a long-term business model. And they can work short-term, but eventually you will end up, I mean, like the 90s speculator market, that gets overblown on what its contribution to the collapse was, because there was a lot of other things.
All right, we have that question coming up right next, Doc.
Yeah. So there was a lot of other things that were contributors, but that was a big part of it. And what happened was the speculators and the collectors literally just said, I am not going to get return on this. So the problem wasn't speculating. It was when the speculators left.
Mm-hmm. So, Perch, I know you recently did a video on this. Did we miss any of the big signs that people should be looking out for that should get their spidey sense tingling if they start seeing some of these markers or signs on the industry?
Yeah, and this is an awesome question, honestly, because I think this is the right question that people should be having, not kind of weird panic. So, I mean, the biggest one people have missed so far, kind of talked around it. If you're looking for signs, like you wake up one morning and there's a news story and you see it on Twitter and it should be the freak out story at this point, and this is exactly opposite of DiDio, if it's announced that Diamond suddenly files for bankruptcy or Diamond is going out, that would be catastrophic. Now, that's interesting because a lot of people want Diamond to go away, and the Diamonds, I think people hate Diamond far more than DiDio ever did, but there is no plan for a world without Diamond right now, no solid plan. And people say, well, what about what Peter Simeti's doing? That's great. It's at a small level, and we need more of that. We need to make that plan, but at a big level, Diamond goes away, everybody is absolutely screwed. And the other, right now, so we've got a plan for it. The other thing is, and this is a weird one, but if you see a big publisher withdraw from digital, now digital is having no real impact on the industry right now, but that would be a signal that they're giving up on that future plan. People do believe, including me, that at one point in the future, digital will have a role to play in all this. And remember, Disney and AT&T both believe that there's an entertainment universe to be made here. So digital is part of their future. And if we wake up one morning and say, you know what, it's never going to work, we're just going to give up on it, that's a bad sign about how they view the properties and where it's going in the future. That would be something to worry about. Again, for most of us on this channel, I'm guessing we like floppy paper comics and reading on a tablet sucks, and all that's true. But that would be a worrisome sign about the business. And then you said Four Horsemen. Prices doubling would be worrisome. That idea was floated at a con last year, like, hey, why don't we just double all the prices and sell to the collectors and then just accept the lower market? That's I don't think anybody says that seriously, but that would be very worrisome. And then the other one, if Disney or AT&T removes the brand. So this is, again, you wake up in the morning and it says, Marvel Comics are now Disney Comics, and you see the Marvel brand go away or the DC brand go away. That would be another definite sign of the apocalypse. So those are my 4, and those are the 4 if I have a nightmare and I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go to the news, those are the 4 things I don't want to see.
Very, very interesting. I think we got a lot of good answers on there. Thank you so much, Atomic Hound, for helping to support the channel. We really appreciate it. Great question. As a follow-up to that, Tsubasa True says, I was too young to remember it. What led to the comic book crash in the 90s? It was the 90s. So as I understand it, all of a sudden people realized that some old, very rare vintage comics were worth a lot of money, and you could, in theory, send your kids to college with the money that you could make off of those. And all of a sudden, lots of speculators jumped into the market, and they wanted to get that next comic book that was going to send their kids to school, that was going to be an investment like gold or the stock market. So the comic industry kind of shifted their focus. They stopped trying to brand out and make comics for children. They tried to basically create new comics that were good investments for the future. So your variant covers started coming in. They kind of retracted from drugstores and things like that. They concentrated more on the retail market, to get these really expensive, really highly collectible, sought after comic books into the market, and basically kind of created a false market of comic books that were never going to be worth as much because the print runs and everything were too much. And then people realized eventually that they were fugazis. They weren't good investments, and they pulled out, and they lost a bunch of their market. Did I kind of get it okay right there, Pele?
Yeah, that pretty much hammered it.
But that's only one part of it.
Yeah, that's only one part of it. But the issue, the biggest issue there was the way that retailers reacted, and I mean, the destruction of comic stores at that time was brutal. You just gotten off of the wave as far as the black and white implosion. A lot of retailers got stuck on huge amounts of black and white comics. As far as independent comics, and they were still kind of their debt and stuff. Their credit card bills and stuff like that were just starting to recover from that. And then this came along, and you had. I tell people, you can go in my back room and you can see the errors of comic shops, gone by, and see, I've got a whole box of Spawn #1s. I got a whole box of X-Men #1s. It's like, just you go back there and just have a traipse through history, and see, what people have done in the past that were stupid, because you've got, oh gosh, this guy tied up, $800 of his inventory, inventory budget on these Spawn #1s. What the heck, guys? But it's and that killed so many people, and it killed so many comics. Not people literally, but it killed so many comic shops, and that really hurt the consumer perception on the market, because of course, comics were selling 1, 3, 5 million copies of certain issues, but what happened to those copies? They didn't just disappear. Where did they go? Well, they ended up in warehouses. They end up in back rooms of shops, and customers didn't really realize how many of them were out there until they found out, and that spelled doom. And then you quickly saw a third of comic book shops just die in the span of about 2 years. And everybody thought that the industry was dying then.
Well, there was that, but there was also a couple other major factors. I mean, outside of Marvel's Heroes World debacle, where they decided that they were going to own their own distributor, and then force all the stores to stop buying their stuff through their regional distributor and now pay 2 bills every month instead of just one. Then there was also the Image phase, and one of the big problems with Image was it was built on speculators and hype, but
Valiant too.
Valiant as well, but Image more so, because Image was built on hype and speculation, and then the books just simply didn't come out. And by the time they did come out, all the interest in them had waned, and now they're sitting on shelves.
Right.
They're sitting on shelves unsold because, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, you were hyped for Youngblood number 3 or 4 or 5, and then it ends up taking 9 months to get number 6 out. And 9 months later, you're like, well, all that excitement for it goes away. It's the reason why the monthly model works so well, because it's just enough time to keep people hyped without so much time that they lose interest.
I remember the interview that I saw with Joe Quesada regarding this. Of course, this is Valiant again, but he was talking about, there's so many of us that were just suddenly millionaires. There's so many of us that were just suddenly wealthy beyond what we'd ever had before. And a lot of artists and writers were like, I've got all this money now. Yeah, I'll work on that comic later. They were just like, buying boats and, buying Ferraris and stuff like that, and going out and having a good time. And, they just did not get around to putting out the books on time.
Yeah. And it killed the gravy train that they were building.
Right. It definitely stunted it. It definitely hurt. And, there's no denying that, that by the time it basically gave everybody kind of a moment to take a deep breath and look around, and the comic shops are going, holy crap, I've got 500 copies of Spawn. Holy crap, I've got all this. I'm never going to sell this. And, it was just like, and then the panic started, and it was ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because that was the problem. I mean, I had a giant pile. I did the main titles always did okay for me. The Wildcats, the Spawns, they were fine. It was the 10 other comics that they were trying to expand their universe with that just sat there and did nothing. And when one title was late, people might grumble, and I'd see a 10% drop of, say, of Wildcats. But I'd see a 90% drop of whatever Wildcat spinoff was coming. I mean, just all interest in that kind of stuff beyond the core 6 just vanished. And so, being on time matters. It always matters. And this may irritate some people, but if you flash forward to today, it's one of the reasons why I say these crowdfunded books and these other things need to come out on time. If you're going to promise a date, you need to come out on the date. And I'm not saying that just because, hey, let's poke at this guy or that guy. It's like, hey, we've lived through this before in the 90s. If you promise something, you don't deliver it. And you're even worse because you don't have a monthly plan. This is like a one comic, and then a year later, who knows when the next comic will come out. And so if you're living in that world and you're just going to be late by 6 months, people's attention are going to go away. You are going to lose that audience, which Image learned the hard way. And some people seem determined to repeat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's, and I think you're going to see that. I mean,
you're already seeing it.
Well, yeah, like like Comicsgate, Indiegogo, stuff like that. There's a lot of us that, the hype we got onto stuff that we were hyped about, and then the promised release date came and went, and then another release date came and went, and then another promised release date, and then another. And by the time we actually get to the point of getting the book, we're like, okay, well, I'm just not going to bother coming back for the next one. Whatever.
Yeah, who's that boob that got on Twitter and was like, oh, all that money that I got from selling my comic, look at all this stuff I bought with it. And I'm like, oh my God, what the heck?
Oh yeah. But I mean, I'm even talking about some of the bigger creators. They're gonna when they come up short, when they overpromise and underdeliver, it's hard to keep interest. Yeah, I mean, as the comment on the screen brought up, Battle Chasers was always late, And it was. And there's a reason why it just kind of, now part of the reason is just because Joe Madureira just wants to play freaking video games all the time and make video games and doesn't really care about making comics. But every time it would kind of come back, it would have a lower new normal with Battle Chasers. Same with a lot of these books. You know, it started at 1 million copies or 2 million copies. And then after the first drop off, you know, it went to 500,000 copies. And then after the second drop off, it went to 150,000 copies. You know, each new normal gets lower the more times you burn people. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand.
Marvel's kind of doing that with all the reboots too. It seems like every time they reboot, the starting point goes lower and lower, and the drop off just accelerates.
It does. Every reboot you have to put on, and you see it now. It's why Marvel has got the scheme of the reboot is done with a more high profile artist that stays around between 1 and 3 issues and then vanishes, because the bump of the reboot now has to be artificially propped up by having somebody there who's a big name. But even that's waning. So you can't continue this forever. And to be 100% clear, you know, Rob Liefeld, very late on a Kickstarter. Same with Joe Mad. Same with all these guys. So whether this is the big joke about, you know, Comicsgate, non-Comicsgate, other gates, whatever you want to be, are all fighting each other. Nobody has the high moral ground on this. And the reality is it's business logic that applies to everyone. Ship your comic on time. Fans will come back for the next one. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And we had this problem happen in the 90s, and we were having it happen in crowdfunded comics today. You know, if you aim for a date, you hit that date. It doesn't, just give them a date and stick with it. Be on time. It doesn't matter when on time is, as long as it's on time.
Yeah, too many people have turned this particular topic today into well, you're attacking me for being a Trump fan, or you're attacking me for being a Democrat, which we've heard the exact same argument on both sides. I mean, Rob Liefeld excuses for his, mirror the excuses on the other end too. But it has nothing to do with any of that. I get that everyone has detractors who are going to come at them for some reason or another. But ship your comic on time. You'll keep your fans. And if you don't, you will not. And in this business right now, if enough of you don't ship your comic on time, you're going to screw everyone else coming into the market, because everyone now is climbing a bigger hill. And that's exactly what we're seeing for crowdfunded books.
One of the interesting things about crowdfunding is I see like there seems to be a group of crowdfunders that are almost openly rooting against the industry. Like they think if Marvel and DC go away, that there won't be any competition. It'll just be their industry. But I don't think it would go that way. I don't think a lot of readers are going to stick around if there's no Batman series or a Spider-Man for them to go read. I see crowdfunding as like the cherry on top rather than the whole meal.
It's a supplement.
Absolutely. It's you know, and I get in such dumb circular arguments with people like, well, this is why I will never buy DC or Marvel. Okay, cool. Buy something. That's fine. But the people who are shouting over and over about how they will only do crowdfunding and that's it, they represent a tiny fraction of the business. Crowdfunding comics cannot survive today on just crowdfunding people. They need comic fans. Comic fans buy everything. And frankly, that's healthy. Comic fans should buy what they like. They should not just buy one company or one book or one person. They should buy whatever they like based on, you know, what they feel good spending their money on. And so we do see a lot of people. And by the way, W.D. Keaton, you put up, you're absolutely right. There are people who are on time. And those are the reasons why the industry is still going. You know, that's one reason why there's still trust in crowdfunding is some people are on time. You need to be on time. But I do really dislike the constant, you know, it is the people view it as competition. Let's root every single day the comic industry has collapsed. Let's make fools out of ourselves by predicting the comic industry collapse in 2018 and 2019, and now people are, you know, saying it's going to collapse this year. I mean, anyone with a brain looks at this and goes, you've been predicting the comic industry was going to implode and die for the last 3 years. Every year it's going to happen, and it's not happening. In fact, the numbers are going up in many cases. So stop making that prediction. You just look like a dummy, and you're fighting an enemy that is not your enemy anyway. people who buy Batman and Spider-Man and other things can certainly be attracted to go and buy Earthworm Jim or Cyberfrog or Jawbreakers or whatever. The fans cross over. It's not a one has to win and the other has to die situation.
Well, I've always been of the opinion that the big two or even the big three, they are essentially the tent poles of the industry. And what happens when you cut down tent poles? The small tent poles don't just hold it up. The tent falls down.
Yeah, you're right.
And the small poles don't just suddenly grow to fill those spaces. The tent falls down. And that's what'll happen if the big two go. Too big to fail is a legitimate thing. You can't have someone else fail you into success.
That's well said. That's well said, Doc. And I think somebody in the chat said as well. It's like saying that the stock market is going to go to zero. That's mathematically impossible. It's not how money works. And so these people, whether they like it or not, are dependent on each other. And just because that's true, it does not mean you can't say, oh, Joe Q is an ass this week, or this situation over here with Tess Fowler is a jerk situation. Yeah, those things can all still be true. And we can also say, and with the money and the momentum and everything else, Marvel Comics is not going to go out of business next month. You can still dislike what you dislike. You can still not buy what you dislike, of course. You don't have to pick both at once. That's silly.
Yeah, if you wanna replace Marvel and DC, you got to grow to be bigger than Marvel and DC. Then if they collapse, you're one of the tent poles holding it up. Otherwise, you just end up with a big tent that you can't hold up.
I mean, I think in some people's minds, they say, all right, well, if Marvel and DC could just go out of business next week, then suddenly my title, my crowdfunded comic would triple in price because all that money would come to me. It will not come to you.
90% will just leave.
I totally agree with that assessment. We do have another super chat. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, Albino Thunderbuns. Best name in the channel.
I love that name.
I love that name. Albino Thunderbuns. It needs to be a crowdfunded comic, man. That's a hero waiting to happen. The industry is starting to go through some disruptive change that is long overdue. So the impact may feel like collapse to some. However, it's industry transforming change, not comics killing change. I agree. I definitely think that we are going through a rough transition period because you have a lot of old models, Diamond being a part of that. You look at the marketing strategies of DC and Marvel, they are very outdated, but they're trying to go into new markets. So there is a transition going on right now. I know, Pele, you're a retailer. You're definitely feeling the frustrations with that as well, though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's there's stress out there, and it's reaching, I wouldn't say hair pulling type of frustration, but for some retailers it may be. When we have a health threat right now going on, and that's hurting sales to a degree. And then when you add in the uncertainty, fear and certainty of doubt of somebody like DiDio getting canned, and a lot of questions floating around without people giving definitive answers, there's definitely stress out there, and that's not just on the comic, dealers as much, also the comic collectors. And the interesting thing I'm seeing with that, though, is the spike in back issue sales. That it's kind of like I wouldn't really have expected that, although maybe I did to a degree. But as new comic sales, if new comic sales falter and stumble, back issue sales climb because people still want their comic fix, and there's still titles they haven't read, and there's still gosh, I've got probably one of the top 20 collections in the world as far as size. I've not read all the comics out there. I've not even read all the comics I have. I'm still working on it. But it's interesting in that respect. I think comic stores that diversify and have a rich back issue selection, have a great back issue selection to choose from, and actively work to improve that as a hedge against possible blips and stuff like that in the new market, they'd be very wise to do so. Find sources to collect bulk, get bulk comics, offer a better back issue selection. There's several different ways to do that. But I think right now, for a lot of comic retailers, you should be working on your back issue selection. You should be working on building your inventory. If you're going to rely solely on new comics to pay your bills and stuff like that, you are going to put yourself in a bad situation in the coming years, because there is going to be tribulations in the comic industry as things settle and change as we go. So don't just rely on the new comic sales. I think that would, like I said, that's going to be bad, and stores that do that are going to be really hurting.
This is such a great comment, though. It's the great name, but great comment. This is perfectly said. The industry is being disrupted. Disruptive means pain. It means some people will not survive out the other end. That's absolutely true. That sounds cold and brutal. That's capitalism. That's evolution. Mm-hmm. It is going to change. Diamond is going to either go away, die, be replaced. Something radically is going to be done. Like I mentioned earlier, that's going to be catastrophic for some if there is not a plan. The only way you make a plan is you put in blood, sweat, tears to make that plan. And, the worrisome part for me, the closest I get to the industry's collapsing, is not enough people are putting in the plan right now. They're just kind of coasting along, kind of hoping that things magically turn around. Hard work is required right now on all fronts. And there's a lot of strategies, what Pele said, but there's many different ways to address this, but none of which come for free. You're going to have to make change.
Absolutely. Yep. So, thank you very much to Albino Thunderbuns. I love the name. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. We have another super chat from All About the Books, $5. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Why should I support Marvel or DC when they insult me and destroy the characters I read? You absolutely shouldn't. Yeah. Ash on Comics and I just did a video on this. Ash, what do you say to that question?
You absolutely should. Yeah, you shouldn't buy comics or support anyone that you feel is treating you poorly. But I would also add a caveat to that we went through a pretty big upheaval, 2016, 2017, that started the whole Comicsgate thing. And yes, I was right there with you, hand in hand, being upset. I didn't buy Marvel for the longest time because of this. But if you really are upset and saying this matters to me, how you treat me, and in my opinion, if that's truly what the deal is, and then the companies to say, well, we're going to make changes, we're going to try to do better. If you're not willing to give them an opportunity to change, then really, why are you here at all? Why continue to cry out from the rooftops about the problems? I would say move on. But if you do care about comics and you want to like comics and you want to like DC and Marvel and you just wish they would fix their problems, then I would suggest give them an opportunity when they do. Marvel and DC have both been operating pretty good on a customer standpoint, relatively speaking, compared to what it was just several years ago. So DC, has some problems with doing some boneheaded decisions as a fan's opinion, like with 5G. I don't like that, but that's not insulting me. It's just, I think and they do a lot of good comics that are a lot of good creators that honestly, they do like you and they don't insult you. I don't see Peter Tomasi out there insulting anyone. I don't see Robert Venditti out there insulting anyone, or even James Tynion. And the list of DC creators goes on and on. So they're doing really good work as well. So if you like their work, I would say you should support it. But honestly, yeah, if tomorrow one of them tweets at you and says, if you don't like my, politics, don't buy my comics or whatever, man, fine, move on and do what you want. But also be open-eyed to the positive out there and the people that do want your business and they do treat you right.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you, Ash, and don't buy, it's your money. Don't put your money where you dislike it. And don't people, it's not so binary. You should support. If you're looking at your comment, why should you support Marvel and DC when they insult you and destroy the characters that you read? If you feel bad about spending your money, don't spend your money. Full stop. Don't. That's the only way really to get your message across. Shouting on Twitter, making YouTube videos, whatever it is, that's white noise at this point. What talks is your dollar. So don't. But more importantly than that, just feel good about how you're spending your hard-earned money. You should be able to go home at night and say, I put my money where I wanted it to go. And that's what you should do. And that's really the only way to happiness. And if you like a comic, support it. That's it.
Yeah, I personally have gone through burnout by reading comics I knew I didn't like just because I was sticking around too long. It wasn't worth it for me. I know it's not worth it for a lot of people out there. If you're not having a good experience, find the comic that is written for you, because you're obviously that is not the one. So that's what I would say to that. Thank you so much to All About the Books for supporting the channel. Really appreciate that. But we do have another super chat from NOLA Nerd. Who dat, my buddy down in New Orleans. Here's my small contribution this weekend. I'm at a park watching my son play a soccer game. Listen to y'all enjoying this beautiful day. Great show. Thank you so much for listening to us, and I hope your son and his soccer team do well. We're rooting for him right here on Thinking Critical, and the comics aficionados are definitely in his corner. Thank you so much for helping support the channel, Nolan Nerd.
Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it.
Go Nolan Nerd's
goal.
I don't know what's the team name. We want to cheer them on.
Is it the Ladybugs?
I hope not.
One thing I did want to add to one of the things that Pele said, or that Perch said earlier, while voting with your dollar is effective, sometimes you do need to also give an idea of what your dollar means. So just voting with your dollar does matter, but sometimes they don't know what you're voting against.
That's true.
Yep. So making it clear that you're subtracting your dollars and you're telling them why.
One thing
is kind of necessary.
There is a customer service. Oh, there is a customer service email that Marvel and DC both have for subscribers and the like. Use it. Yelling on Twitter is not going to do anything because they've already tuned that out.
Everybody.
And they muted everybody that upset them, and they're not really paying attention to it anymore. But if you write them a well-worded email explaining what's going on and not cussing at them or anything like that, but that would probably have a lot more influence than just tweeting something at them.
Completely. People I need to understand. Number one, vote with your wallet. Don't spend money where you don't like it. That's going to help you sleep better at night. Number two, make your voice heard for sure, but be clever about it. If you go and yell, you were joining a chorus, people are yelling. Many of whom, bluntly, many of whom are not buying the comic anyway and are just enjoying yelling. It's just like the people who go and protest in the street and get into costume. It's street cosplay. They don't care at all about the subject that they're doing. So
they're there for the mayhem.
Yeah, they're there for just noise. So don't be one of that crowd. Make sure you're landing your message. And also, please don't feel like you need to wake up every single morning and tell Marvel that they suck. They will stop listening to you. And I say this for your own sanity. You're making yourself crazy. They're not listening to you, and you're just becoming this crazy person. So just try to, you should enjoy comics. If you're not enjoying comics, then something is clearly wrong.
All right, so we do know the name of Nola's son's team. It is the Green Dragons. On 1, 2, 3, we're gonna go Green Dragons. 1, 2, 3, go Green Dragons. Go guys! We hope you're doing very well and enjoying your sports activity. Love sports, playing sports when I was growing up. Also, along the lines of what people just said about giving feedback to Marvel, if you try to call Marvel and you can't get CB Cebulski on the line, you can thank Nasser Rabadi, because he already did that once, and he probably ain't taking calls no more.
That is true, yeah. Right, so don't be one of those people who, by the way, who shows up at a convention when they're running again and decide you're going to air your grievances to somebody at a table. You're the one who looks crazy. You may not realize at the time, but everybody is watching the show, and they're watching you go crazy. You're not, and the creator's sitting there just, immune at that point. It can be funny. If you're going to do it, film it. Please post it so we can all watch, but just understand you're the one who's going to wind up looking nuts in that situation.
Indeed.
Absolutely. All right, so we do have a super chat from Kenneth Dowling, $10. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Hi, guys. Yesterday, I bought the Long Halloween trade paperback. with the original cover. Also saw Superman Red Sun, enjoyed it. Whoever's running DC animation should be running the movie universe. Stay awesome. Who's running the DC animation right now?
I don't know, but it's pretty awesome. It's if their animation department was animation department, they would be giving Marvel a run for their money. It's really good. I love the DC animated movies for the most part. They're really well done. The animation's kind of, it is what it is, but the storytelling is so good. It's like, wow. I get excited when I see there's a new DC animated movie coming out, and I get to add it to my collection. So,
yeah, DC is absolutely slaying Marvel when it comes to animated films. Has anyone seen Red Sun yet?
Yeah,
fantastic, very good. It was on rotation at the shop for a long time.
I've heard some controversial things about Red Sun, so I'm hesitant.
No, it's good. It's fine. It's good. I mean, look, nothing is going to be 100% of anything, but it's entertaining and it's fine. People, it's the nature of who we are now as people. We look for some very small thing gets pulled out, and then articles get written about it, and the Mary Sue will champion it, and this other site will condemn it, and it takes something that most people would have missed if they blinked, and there's just too much of that. It's causing us not to enjoy the core.
Well, obviously, I'm not listening to the Mary Sue when I give my opinions, but
I'm
taking them from people I respect.
Yeah, but
my gag reflex on that, when I see Mary Sue attached to something, I automatically have a gag reflex, and it's like, I don't want to help them, but it's like,
honestly, if Mary Sue was saying it was bad, I would take that as a positive.
No,
if they say it's good.
Mary Sue has pieces that were good, and then people were responding to that. It's fine. I think, I have people I respect, I listen to on all sides of the aisle who give different points of advice. I use all that as data, and then I watch it for myself, or I read it for myself, and I decide. And sometimes I find I agree, and sometimes I don't. Even somebody whose opinions line up with me all along the line, a comic or movie can hit me in a certain way, and I still enjoy it. So I think the animation stuff they're doing is awesome. I think, I know, actually, I can say definitively that there is a lot of consternation at Disney about why they're not able to produce the same thing. Arguably, they should have a better animation studio and way to do this. And I know that they want to get into this with Disney Plus, but right now their money is on the bigger budget stuff that they're producing. But I will bet you right now, if we're sitting in this show 2 years from now, you will see this sudden explosion of Disney animated films, just like this, just like what DC does, coming out of Disney Plus and other places. I guarantee it.
So just to follow up on what Perch just said right there, he and I agree on a lot of things. I love collaborating with him on the channel, but he likes Coldplay.
No. I said Coldplay isn't terrible. They're very different.
You said I like Coldplay in one of your videos.
I was like, I look. I have no bones about it. They're not the most. I have no issues with that band. A lot of people do. It's fine. There you go.
See, he's owning it, people.
I own it. I don't care. I don't. So, but at the same point, I don't think I'm 99% positive unless the wife snuck it in. There's no purchased Coldplay music in my house, and this doesn't mean I'm stealing it either. But if I forget,
are you dirty pirater?
No,
high seas.
Yeah.
Perch, I'll stand with you. I like Coldplay too.
There you go.
Oh my God.
Okay, my opinion of Ash just dropped.
The stream's over, people. but seriously, thank you so much to Kenneth Dowling for supporting the channel. Great points. We all love the DC animated movies. Really wish Marvel could catch up. Although it sounds like was it The Killing Joke had some weird stuff added into it, but they can't all be winners, folks.
They tend to add things that I wish they would. As a comic purist, I wish they would just take the comic and adapt it. That would be awesome. And if
it's 50 minutes,
just do it.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. There's no need to get the runtime to an hour 20. It's an animated movie.
People are fine. You don't need to do that.
You can still charge $9. So we do have another super chat from Dark Admiral March Hare. One of the OG viewers on the channel. I think he's been with us almost from the beginning. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. I still post my weekly buys and tags and tag the companies. I'm with you. I really miss hashtag Mood and Needle, but hashtag show me your floppies is a great substitute. Doc, are you still showing floppies?
I do almost every week. I show my new comic book day. I show old comic book day. Old Comic Book Day is definitely my favorite of the two. I love just showing off old back issues that I find or stuff that I pick up. Sometimes it's keys, sometimes it's little just filler stuff. I love showing off floppies.
Oh, one thing I wanted to kind of add real quick on that. I went by Kroger, and they've got their little comic book section. They don't get a whole lot of newsstand edition, but they do get some. And just happened to be cruising by there, flipped through them real quick, and Batman 89s. They had three Batman 89s sitting there, flawless, and I was like, well, thank you very much. Grabbed them up, took them to checkout. So yeah, if there's books that are hard to find, that what we've been talking about for the last few weeks, that books that come out and they're just immediately unobtainium, go to the places that have newsstand editions and check them out, because they don't care. Those companies that put those comics and stuff like that, they don't care. They couldn't care less. So they're going to put them out regardless, and just take advantage of that.
I didn't realize there still was newsstand editions.
Yep, there are.
Holy crap!
Yeah,
is that going to be possibly even a bigger collector's item, because the rarity of the newsstand edition?
Absolutely,
it's not. Wow. Sometimes yes, sometimes it's not a lock, but
if it's a key comic, yes. If it's not a key comic, no. If it's not already something, it's
right,
it won't matter.
Wow.
But for an 89,
yeah,
I would imagine that a Batman 89 newsstand edition that's in 9.8 will probably be worth several $100s for too long. So go look for them.
People don't even know if Punchline's a cool character yet.
I know.
It's weird how the world works. So we do have another super chat from Comics with Bueller. What's up, guys? Great to catch you live. Well, thank you for being here live. We appreciate all the interaction with the viewers. The chats are very cordial today. I thought maybe with the amount of heartache and consternation going on in the community that maybe it would be a bloodbath in there with everyone being rude and kind of cutting each other off. Thank you all so much for being kind to each other, listening to each other and not trying to cancel out each other's voices. I really do appreciate. That's why I do have the best, comics YouTube viewership, in the entire on all of YouTube, and I definitely appreciate that. Thank you so much for helping support the channel. If you haven't liked the video, definitely give us a thumbs up. We got a great conversation going on here. Great panel talking about some very interesting stuff. Perch, I know we've talked about a lot of the weird things going on right now. In Seattle, you've got your business going on. Emerald City Comic Con got canceled. It looks like another con. Well, I think South by Southwest got canceled.
Yep,
it did.
So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. But one of our theories was, with all these cancellations and things like that going on, this was going to be a good opportunity for DC Comics to circle the wagons, maybe concentrate on what 5G is going to be moving forward, because we do know it's changing a little bit. Do you still believe that's happening? And do you think DC is going to deliver a good 5G that's going to change people's hearts and minds?
I think, well, there's a few questions there. And by the way, for people who are in the chat wondering why we're talking around this, there are some terms that that YouTube doesn't like us to say right now for good reason. So we do not want to harm Wes and his channel. So we will talk around those terms right now. Anyway, I think the current situation, so I'm going to speak carefully so I don't accidentally do it myself after saying that. The current situation is such that DC does have an opportunity, with all the turmoil, the chaos, the things that have happened of late, to kind of get their marketing message on point. And this is where I think the 5G story, if I go back to the beginning, got away from them. So if you remember way back when, somebody, i.e. somebody from Portland, gave a scoop to Rich Johnson over at Bleeding Cool that 5G was basically going to replace a bunch of characters and destroy the whole world and all the rest. And Bleeding Cool ran with that story, and then everyone else ran with Bleeding Cool's story. Now, it was single sourced. And if you go back and you look at all the other articles that were written, nobody was claiming any other source besides that first one. And Rich being rich and Bleeding Cool being Bleeding Cool definitely made it sound like this was a forever change. In fact, a lot of his early statements said, Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman would be aged up and gone forever. And then they would be replaced by diverse, all these characters hitting all the buzzwords. His entire goal was to get click traffic to the site, to get people arguing, because he knows it's why he put Richard Meyer on his list. It's why he put Ethan Van Sciver. It's why he put War Campaign on his list at the end of the year. He does that for one reason only, not because he thinks they're important parts of the industry, but because he wants people to shout and yell on both sides. Why'd you put him on that list? Oh, I'm great, I'm on that list. Promote his site. That's why he does it. So he wrote this story. It was extremely poorly written. It didn't match what DC was saying at cons, but everyone took it as gospel. And then suddenly you had everybody saying, oh, 5G is the woke apocalypse, which if there's one term, please can we retire in 2020, but that be that as it may. So it was never meant to be that. Now now all that said, that doesn't mean 5G is going to be good. Age of Apocalypse was a good storyline. I liked it, but it worked out. That could have easily sucked. We've seen plenty of storylines like that did not go well, but throughout the history of Marvel and DC. So will it be good? Who knows? They're going to put their best effort forward on it, but people should stop looking at it like this is the replacement of Superman by some gender neutral other ethnicity, hero, and instead look at it. This is a temporary storyline. It's not even going to interrupt many of the core titles. Exactly. And you like it, it sells. There will be more of it. If you don't, there won't. And it's really as simple as that. You don't have
one of the things that got people rumbling was oh my gosh, they're going to suspend the regular titles. And I think originally that was the intention, but then they got the backlash from it and they're like, whoa, no, we're not going to do that. And they backed up really quick from that. But people haven't seen, it's like the usual thing with news. People don't see the update to the news story. They only see the initial reporting. So
that's right. And you think about it, as I've been saying over and over, you think about it like Age of Apocalypse. Age of Apocalypse interrupted some of the titles. It didn't interrupt all of them. It interrupted some of them. And that was always the plan here. It was not going to every DC title stops like at Secret. Well, even Secret Wars, they didn't all stop. So they're not going to just interrupt everything. They're going to interrupt some. And I do think, Pele, you're right, and that I think they were going to interrupt more than they are now. But I don't also think that's a reaction to YouTubers having a negative piece to it. I think it's more just, DiDio is out. He was a driving force by that. Snyder has more influence. So you're going to see things shuffle around a bit. But at the end of the day, are they going to halt, 12 comics or 8 comics for 3 to 6 months? It may be less now. I mean, again, who knows? The comics being good or bad are really going to depend on the creative teams that go on it and the story they have to tell. But just please remember, everybody in your minds, this started with Rich Johnson from Bleeding Cool. Just remember that and repeat that 20 times. That's the guy who started this. So to Wes's original question, if this con interruption and the fears and the other things, maybe this allows DC a chance to huddle, get their message out, get a straight thing going, and be able to push it out in a coherent way. That's probably a positive for them. A little break from the con schedule, it's probably a good thing to get their act together.
Yeah, I mean, you got to consider the source. I mean, Rich Johnson, he really desperately wants his bias to be affirmed, and everybody kind of does, really. But he doesn't get multiple sources. He doesn't, everything that. Mostly what he's going to be pushing towards is whatever his political agenda is. So you have to take you have to take whatever he reports with a grain of salt. And, it is what it is. He's got a loud bullhorn in the comics industry as far as news is concerned. That's unfortunate, but, it's best just to, whatever he says, let it kind of go one ear and out the other and let it go.
Well, his bullhorn that he has, we give him. So just to be 100% clear, whenever say EBS does live streams about the nightmare of 5G and Rich Johnson's story, he is handing Rich Johnson more power. I get that's a cool topic. He gets a lot of money, and so no shade on EBS for wanting to make money. We all want to make money, but every time we do a story based on that source, we're empowering that guy. and he will continue forever if we do. And Tevye, by the way, to cap it off, said something correct. We've seen this before. If you remember Future's End, that was the same idea, and that was DiDio's idea as well. And so it's probably no surprise this is going back to that storyline. Future's End was seen as something that was cut short. It didn't do as much as DiDio wanted to do, and he wanted to come back to that concept, and yeah, here we are.
Well, I'm personally of the opinion that Rich Johnson is a walking version of Cancer AIDS who built a website to digitally transmit it to everyone else.
I'm clapping for you right now. Agreed.
Point.
That was very descriptive. I do want to say thank you very much to I believe it's Walesy1 for the super chat. Big fan of the channel. Well, I'm
Thanks
a big fan of you, and definitely a big fan of anyone that or everyone that supports the channel. All the viewers that are here with us right now, really appreciate it. And we're having a great conversation today. If you're noticing that we haven't really touched on the Shaun Gordon Murphy topic too much, 2 weeks ago, I had already scheduled up a cancel culture panel for tomorrow. I was going to double stream, and this all happened in that. So we're somewhat avoiding that because it's all going to be covered in tomorrow's panel. But we will talk about it here in a little bit as well. So
Yeah.
So you will get Doc's opinion and Pele's opinion and everyone else's. And thank you very much for supporting the channel, Walesy. Really appreciate it.
Much appreciated.
And we were bagging on Rich Johnson and his terrible sources.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I think it is this echo chamber that Rich, and he's done this so many times before. He floats out a half-baked theory where he is clever and that he knows if he puts in a little bit to kind of tease one crowd, a little bit to tease the other crowd, the crowds will start fighting each other, and that's what happens. So it's a little bit like, hey, diversity is coming, guys, huh? Diversity, you guys like diversity, right? And then people react to it, and
that's why he's butt cancer.
Yeah, that's right. So stop reacting to it, and we'll all be a little bit happier because I mean it gets to, you know, Ash and I had a friendly scrap, I would say, on Twitter. It's you know, we're now looking for Jim Lee to kind of reassure us, but why? I mean, if I was Jim Lee, I would come out and say, hey, that Rich Johnson guy is an asshole. Stop listening to him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. The end. And just leave it at that. I mean, that would be the most reassuring thing he could probably do, to be honest. But
Yeah, I mean, any of these guys could literally just pretty much end Rich Johnston's,
career. Yeah,
you
with
know,
a tweet.
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, but Rich Johnson, for all the damage he does a lot of shilling too.
yeah,
He
he
does,
does.
particularly for a group of people who are who are very much connected right now, but their power is waning. I think if Bendis slips and his network goes with him, that's a huge chunk of the people who give him his info. And then you've just got, you know, people like Tess Fowler who are going to feed him kind of crazy nonsense. And it kind of then depends on all of us. At what point are we going to be sick of the outrage?
Yeah,
100%. So we do have another super chat. We haven't talked X-Men now. It's time to get to it. If people have watched the channel, Doc and I had a tepid response to 10 of Swords. We thought the name was bad, and we had other objections about the 15 issue crossover going to be really expensive. That's a lot of buy-in, and also the co-writer along with Jonathan Hickman being Tinny Howard. With that, Kenneth Dowling says on 10 of Swords, Wes, I'm with you and Doc. I am not on board for that. Only X-Men. I enjoy Hickman's writing, but I'm thinking he's drawing things out. What do you think his end game is with X-Men? Perch, I know you're a huge X-Men fan. What do you think the end game is?
I mean, milk as much money out as long as you can. I think that's the end game. I think that this is, if you look at his previous work, I think we're in the the second quarter, the middle a little bit, where we're going to just he's doing these single issues. He's drawing out a bunch of threats. He's then probably in about a year's time, we'll do events where we bring some of those threats back together, you know, find out what's going on in the vaults and so on, get these things brought back in. I think the end game is just, you know, the X-Men goes and they have a bunch of, you know, big battle against the villains. Their reincarnation thing blows up and the teams are scattered a little bit. And I think and then he's leaving something for the other writers who come on to do. But I think that's several years away. I think we're at least, you know, 4 or 5 years away from getting anywhere close to that. And you know, this X of Swords, I mean, sure. The weird part to me is this is the kind of the summer 15 issue crossover, and then we're also promised a winter crossover. So we're getting two big X-Men crossovers in 1 year. Good Lord. And I am confused, and I say this. want to understand Teenie Howard. So I have talked to many people I respect. Brian Edward Hill on the interview I did. It's praised her up and down as being just a wonderful person to work with, great ideas, really thinking. And I can't discount that because I respect his opinion and I think he is a thoughtful guy. And I hear that from a lot of people. Hickman apparently just loves working with her. It's just he really finds that she's creatively pushes him further. So I pick up Excalibur and I try and I'm not getting it. So I'm having trouble putting these two together because generally speaking, if there's somebody you really like and you respect, I think Ash mentioned earlier, you start to appreciate the recommendations, right?
Yeah, well, I would kind of throw in real quick in a little interjection there. Is it so much that he likes and respects her, or that he has to like and respect her?
He's afraid not to. He's
afraid
afraid
because the way the industry is, if you don't toe the line, you see what happens.
It's not. There's a history there. There's a history that precedes her involvement in Marvel.
Really? Before Marvel?
Yes. There's a history there. I don't get it. I'm not saying I don't get it. And I don't get it either. I've never met Teenie Howard. Full disclosure, she may be the most wonderful person in the world. She may be a terrible person. I have no idea. All I know is Excalibur, I really struggle with. And there's a lot of people. Hickman was most excited about her pitch. Legitimately most excited about her pitch. Why? I feel like I'm missing something.
Maybe she's one of these idea people that can sound like I got these great ideas, and then when it comes time to execute, she just can't deliver. Because Excalibur, I could see on a pitch sounding good. I'm not saying it was. I'm just some of the crazy things that are in the book. If you just pitched it to me like, oh, it's going to happen, and in Shogo, there's going to be a dragon, and then they're going to go to Otherworld, and I'd be like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then you read it and you're like, what the hell is this?
Well, maybe it's more a biology thing, and a lot of these comic creators are just really thirsty.
No, I'd be surprised. I just you go back, you listen to that interview with Hill, and we get to a point where we're talking about Howard and this exact thing, and there's legitimate excitement. It's like, yeah, this pitch was amazing. And it's like Ash said, maybe it just sounds really good, and then the execution comes out. And it's like something is just off. It's just missing. I don't get it. So I went down this whole path because X of Swords, she's obviously, it's a Teenie Howard Hickman production doing this thing. It is supposed to dip more into the magic side of things, apparently. And that's the title that's been struggling, at least for me as a reader. And it doesn't exactly line up with the sales numbers, but still it's Excalibur's not burning through the charts either. So I'm just, I just feel like I'm missing something, and I'm waiting for the shoe to drop or the light bulb to go off or something. But I feel like I disconnect.
I'm with you, man. Let's actually listen to a bunch of her interviews before I did some stuff where I covered Excalibur on the channel, and she seems like a genuinely nice person. She really does. She's very excited about comics, and she has some enthusiasm. So I'll give her that. And I don't ever see her on social media bagging on people. She seems to have a generally pleasant, air about her. She's welcoming to customers, but it's the writing that really turns me off. It's the dialogue it's clunky. It doesn't flow very well. It's the pacing of the books. It just, I can't do it. It doesn't work for me.
She may just be one of those people that would be a better editor than a writer.
Yeah, she's a good muse, but not a good content creator.
Yeah, if it comes down to her executing, it's going to be flatter than a board. But if she's coming up with ideas and pitching things, that's great. Let someone else actually execute it, though. Someone that actually has the talent to execute it, because she apparently does not have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to kind of sum up what Wes says, go look on Twitter. You're not blocked by Teenie Howard, or I don't know. Most people are not. Maybe some people are. I don't know. But she's certainly not like the others that are there. I don't believe she's done a lot of blocking. And the interviews I have seen, I've never met her in person, there is you can tell there's a genuine enthusiasm for comics. She's wanting to do her best. She has taken criticism. If you can look at her feed, she's taken criticism well. All those things are things we want in an industry and in working with creators. It's just that book is just not fun to read for me. So maybe, you know, and by the way, not everything has to be, you know, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not just you. I've talked to the customers, and they're like, "Oh, this is bad."
The other thing that doesn't seem to be considered, though, is that maybe Hickman is not this great end-all be-all thing that some fans want to prop him up as, because I came into this not knowing a lot about Hickman, and then I heard from a lot of people that I like and respect, and we're just like, "Oh my God, Hickman is amazing. He's so Ash, you just wait. He's going to revolutionize comic." And I was like, "All right, okay." And I'm reading this stuff, and you know, Hoxpox was genuinely blew my socks off. I readily admit it. But some of the stuff I'm reading in Dawn of X, I legitimately, like, my belief is that it is just actually really bad stuff, and this is coming from Hickman, and I'm just like, well, if this guy thinks this is good writing, to me it explains why he thinks things like Excalibur is good, because I actually honestly think, as bad as Excalibur is, I'm liking it better than some of the stuff Hickman himself is doing. So I don't think Hickman, I don't look up to him on this great pedestal as like this massive expert and master of talent, and he can just, like, I just see him as a guy struggling on his own and just trying to do good stuff, and he doesn't always hit it out of the park.
I'd say X-Men 5, 6, and 7 are like amazing. Those are like 5-star books.
No,
now,
but
it might not be the X-Men you like, because it's definitely a different presentation of them, but the execution of those stories is great.
But nobody is flawless. I think I agree with that point. There is nobody, and anytime we get to lionizing any people, it's like the people on Twitter. Somebody say, "Oh, you know, Jim Shooter was the absolute best person in the universe, and if only he could come back, all comics would be saved." I mean, yeah, pick up some Jim Shooter comics. It's not, nobody has a perfect track record, and you know, Hickman did, through House of X, Powers of 10, elevate his legend quite a lot, and good for him. He did. He revitalized a franchise. It's all great. Doesn't mean he can't do clunky comics. He absolutely can, and has, and will. So I think if I don't look at him and say whoever he picks must be awesome, I just see Marvel continues to elevate Teenie Howard, give her more things to do, and you know, her books are not again, they don't burn down the charts. There seems like there's something missing.
Well, it's not just Teenie Howard. There's a select group of writers that seem to all get, the more that they just turn in mediocre work, the more that their sales dip, the more jobs they just continue to seem to be handed. And you know, there's a lot of controversy. I know that this particular stream is not devoted to that, so I'm not going to really go into it, but Teenie Howard fits into that group. And so I think that there's other reasons why she's getting work than just besides she's some protege of Hickman.
Yeah.
Well, she's a Marvel exclusive writer.
And they're going to push that as a result. I wonder, somebody in the chat mentioned it, and I do wonder about this. I mean, I'll throw out, once upon a time in Marvel, there was a different way that editors and writers work together, where some of the writers would do more of idea pitches with the writers, and then the writers would go and execute, almost like a scripter and a plotter kind of relationship. And perhaps, you know, there's a sign here that people like Teenie Howard are great for big concepts and putting themes down and getting kind of these ideas put together. And then you need a good plot or scripter to then take it and make it pace and flow properly. Maybe that's what's needed. And I mean, for a long time, I've been arguing that Marvel needs to change their editorial stance. Maybe this is an example of that, because I do think there are people at Marvel who go to these creative summits and knock it out of the park. And just blow people away. But then you get to the actual book and it's like, ugh. I mean, the current Captain America run supposedly had an amazing pitch to it. And if I kind of ignore all of the writing, the bad art, everything that is actually in that comic, and I think about like one paragraph in Wikipedia, it's an interesting story. But I have to go way back to that, you know, 100,000 foot view of Captain America, and then, hey, life's good. But the actual execution is terrible. So maybe that's what we've got here.
Yeah.
So we are kind of running up on time here, and I know we wanted to address the Shaun Gordon Murphy part. I do want to say thank you very much to Kenneth Allen for helping support the channel. Really appreciate great question. You definitely got a lot of good conversation stimulated on here for the stream. I really appreciate it. So with the Shaun Gordon Murphy thing, if people don't know, he was basically pressured into withdrawing a cover for a crowdfunded comic. What was it? Bigfoot Bill 2 with Doug TenNapel. and it caused a lot of heartache. There's a lot, people are freaking out on social media. I'm sure they're doing it on their YouTube channels as well. Like I said, we are doing an entire stream tomorrow. We're going to cover that, but I do want to let everyone here, get their say in about how they're feeling about it. But please, no 10-minute. We don't have 10 minutes each for it, but 2 or 3 minutes each. Doc, how are you feeling about it?
Honestly, it feels like there's a small subsect of the irrelevant, creative and sales wise, but very relevant in the make a bunch of social media noise sect of the industry that feels their power waning and are trying to exert as much of it as they can to try to win some of it back. And they got a scalp. And the problem is they immediately went for another scalp. They got the scalp with Doug and Shaun, and then they immediately went after trying to get Blake Northcotts. And if they can take Blake's, then the next is Scott Lobdell. After that, Brett Booth. After that, a dozen other ones, because there's a lot of people that are just normies that just want to make good, fun comics that don't want to play the game, don't want to fall in line, just want to make comics that they're out to get. And I can understand to a degree, Doug and Shaun was the easiest one to get, but if the rest of them, if they can get another one, it's going to be a problem. And it's going to be 2017 all over again, and the industry does not survive another 2017.
Okay. How are you feeling, Pele?
I think that it's just they're trying to draw blood anywhere they can, and and a lot of the creators out there, they just want to make comics. And as soon as they came out with you're an istophobe, bad person, this guy's a not UC, and you shouldn't be working with him. He hates the woke people and all those kind of alphabet people and all that. So he freaked out, and what he did what he said he wasn't going to do, which is get on social media now, and went back on. If he'd have just not gone back on that and just sat down and kept his mouth shut, none of this would have happened, as far as and all that would have chilled out. But he did. He went back on what he thought he was, what he said he was going to do, and he threw Doug under the bus, and and I lost a lot of respect for him. It's just I'm not going to promote him as much going forward. I'm done with that crap, and I'm voting with my wallet and my dollars, and I'm just not going to go out of my way anymore for him. It's pathetic. It's ridiculous, and those people that are making all the allegations, they don't buy comics anyway. They're just there for the scalps, like Doc said.
I want to say bye, Felicia to Bruce. Thank you for your time.
Bye, buddy.
So yeah, it's just awful people like that. It's just anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
sorry
bye
about
Bruce.
that, Pele, but Bruce wanted me to say bye. Good riddance, sir. We're having a conversation here. If you don't like the tone of it, you don't like the tone of it. Ash, did you have something to say?
Downvote on your way out, dumbass.
Hey, I'm really salty about what's going on, and I made a video that I can post in the chat to help me be expedient here, not talk too much, because I know we are running up on time. But what really gets me about the whole thing, I respect what Shaun did. He's got to put, at the end of the day, he's got to put food on his table. He's got to look out for what he's doing, and he works in a really hostile environment. And it's easy, I think, for fans to look out from the outside and just be like, you should have done this or you shouldn't have done that. And, I don't know if any of us, except for if there's any comic pros that are, happen to be in the audience or anything, but work in some sort of level of hostility like these comic pros do. And I think it's easy for us sometimes to forget what they have to go through. And if you burn this bridge, whether legitimately because you deserve it or just because other people want to, cancel you, you don't have a lot of places to go, right? It's not like if you work for Microsoft and you burn that bridge, now you can go work at Google. And then if you burn that bridge, you can go work for Facebook. Like the comic industry is this little tiny place. And if you devoted your entire life to making that work, you got to play ball. And unfortunately, the team that
I don't think
that
so.
you're playing ball for, and okay, and I agree. Maybe not everyone's going to agree with my take, but he made his decisions for him, and I think ultimately doesn't make him a bad creator. Ultimately, he didn't lash out at his fans. He didn't take it out on his fans. We as fans are missing is a Bigfoot Bill cover. What really bothers me though is that tweet when it came out. Tess Fowler said one key thing, and it was, "I told you back in 2017 this dude was a problem," which means this whole thing honestly had nothing to do with Bigfoot Bill or Doug TenNapel or anything else. This has been going back for years, that this group of just cancerous people have been trying to either control or cancel others in the industry that don't fit their agenda, and they basically want to ruin lives for the sake of their own stupid political ideology, and they don't actually care about comics. And we as fans, we need, I don't know what we can do, but we can't be standing for this. Like, Shaun is doing good work. He's just trying to make good comics. He's behaving the way that we want. And behind the scenes are a bunch of raging lunatics with mental disorders who want to ruin him. And he's what's good in the industry. So hopefully anyone wants to hear a little bit more of my thoughts, you can check that link I did, and that's all I have to say.
He just could have not said anything. That's all I'm going to say.
He could have
just not said anything, and it would have just blown over, because they would have been like, "Oh, he's not answering his social media right now." Well,
you're right. I don't disagree with you, Pele. I'm just saying it's easier for us to make that decision than when you're actually in the hot seat yourself. That's all I'm saying. So I still respect him. I'm going to support this guy, and I'm absolutely going to rage about people like Tess Fowler and their evil. And I hope that they find a nice, good job outside the comic industry.
Mm-hmm. All right, Perch, you're the last one up. What say you about the situation before we wrap this stream up?
Well, as it so happens, I do have in scheduled videos. I do have one later this afternoon, and I go into it a little bit there, so I won't repeat that and bore everybody with that topic. But I think that a lot of good stuff's been said. Here my view on outrage and cancel culture in general, which, by the way, people need to understand. There have been people on the Comicsgate side, there are people on the the woke side, the Portland side, the Whisper Network side, whatever it is, who've all used different forms of cancel culture. Nobody can say our side has never done it. People absolutely have tried to make things happen. The difference is some of the people in this case have some influence, and it's not about, I think it's a lot less about ideology, and frankly, it's a lot more about just good old-fashioned power. I mean, Tess Fowler, some of these people would love to have exclusive DC jobs, Marvel jobs, etc. They would love to do it. The talent, their skill, where they're at in the industry has not given them that position. Tess Fowler is an interesting one because, as much as there's friends and people will support her and retweet it and all the rest of the stuff that went on here, people won't give her money or projects. She does have a reputation. Even her friends, you go to a con and you get people drinking, they will talk about how you never trust her with anything because of her history. So, I mean, it's not like that's not known, but this is about power and who can get that power and who can take it. And I think that it was a mistake, certainly for Murphy to blink on this, because whether you agree with it or not, it's just going to continue now. One thing will lead to another thing will lead to another thing. You'll see these people emboldened to try and cancel more things, and you'll see people on the other side try and retaliate by getting things canceled on their end. The whole time when Jawbreakers was first coming out, there was this cluster of back and forth people trying to cancel each other's projects, flaming Eric Larson, flaming the Antarctic guy, flaming Meyer. I mean, it's just none of this is helpful. And it goes back to what about an hour ago. Just vote with your wallet, buy what you like, and stop getting involved in what other people get to buy. It's not your business. So I think it's a mistake. All that said, I'm not surprised. I mean, Murphy was just handed a little imprint of his own to deal with. He's suddenly got a lot at stake. He's looking at not having that taken away. And DC is in a fragile place right now. So, I mean, Lee's denied it, but I don't buy it at all. I think Lee absolutely, or somebody, he knows that somebody gave Murphy a call and said, hey, we're rebuilding this. We just had DiDio go for creating an unsafe work environment. And now there's these allegations you're supporting a bad guy. We can't have this. The PR optics on this are terrible, which is exactly why Fowler did it when she did it. That's what happened.
If this was 3 years from now and the Murphyverse was making DC tens of millions of dollars a year and this happened, Shaun could have ignored it and nobody would have, DC wouldn't have even taken it seriously because at that point Shaun had power. Right now he's still in a precarious position where it could go tits up at any point in time.
But let's remember that this isn't just Tess Fowler. She's the tip of the iceberg, but looming beneath the surface is a much larger group that are the little whisper network. And if Jim Lee did get involved, which I do believe he did on some capacity, it's probably because a lot of other little, people that share Tess Fowler's ideology were concern trolling. Oh, Jim, did you know that you've got this guy working for you that you're about to give this imprint, but he's actually like, I don't know what would being said. This is all speculation on my part.
Yeah. I'm covering this tomorrow, guys. This is
okay. All right. I'll end it.
This is not the rebuttal. This is not the rebuttal hour.
Sorry, buddy. I apologize. I'll rein it in.
What are you doing to me?
Oh, sorry.
Perch, did you get your last bit of stuff in?
Yeah, I'm good. It's just a shame. I think it's a shame, and I think we have to stop all sides. We have to stop this. It is bad for the industry. It's bad to go try and cancel the pervert. It's bad to go try and cancel Shaun Gordon Murphy. It's bad to cancel any of this stuff. People can be horrible. We should not support their work with our dollars. We should definitely say when something's bad. We shouldn't go and try and do cancel culture on anything. It's destructive and it will never end.
I agree. And like I said, there will be a full panel tomorrow. We're starting 1 hour late, 11 a.m. on Sunday Eastern Standard Time, for those people that want to go out on their Saturday night and have a little bit of fun. I do have a great panel scheduled to be here. Doug Ernst is going to be joining me. Aaron Sparrow is going to be joining me. The guys from Clownfish TV are going to be here, and I believe I have one more, but I haven't got it confirmed yet. So it should be a great discussion, great debate about cancel culture and how it's affecting the comic book industry, and I can't wait for it. We're going to have a big in-depth conversation about it tomorrow. Please come back. I think you all will find that enlightening, and it should be definitely worth your time. I do want to say thank you very much to Interjerspin for the £5, I believe that is £5 the super chat. Love or hate EVS, given the choice to throw Zach under the bus, he didn't. I have never seen EVS throw Zach under the bus, so I guess you were likely correct. I didn't know that people asked him to, but I don't think he would do that. Those two seem to be very close, and EVS certainly did not throw your boy Zach under the bus, just like Doc didn't, and a lot of people. I think we all love Zach. He's a good guy. Definitely one of the reasons my channel exists, and I do wish him well on his projects.
In the chat, I'm not sure what the instance here is where Zach would get thrown under the bus, but yeah, I mean, it all goes back to the same thing. I mean, don't throw people under the bus. Don't try and, I mean, you can disagree with someone without trying to kill them. There is a line there you can have.
Couldn't have said it better. So that'll basically wrap up today's channel. Of course, we never stay exactly on topic, but I think we definitely hit the collapsing industry. The industry is not in an imminent collapse. Will it collapse eventually? Perhaps, but I don't think we'll be seeing it in the very near future. But it is time to do some comic book recommendations where we talk about the best comic books of this week, or maybe something we're looking at for next week, or if there's no good comics this week, something else to read. Ash, what are you recommending this week?
This week coming up, Hawkman, and Thor are probably my two big picks, the things I'm looking forward to. But also a little book by a small time writer that's kind of he's trying to make it big in the industry. It's a guy called Jonathan Hickman. He's got a book coming out from Image called Decorum. It's a brand new series. I look at it as he's kind of replacing his big opus that he just did with East of West, and now he's got a new book coming out. So for those who are big fans of Jonathan Hickman, and I am a fan too, even though I'm heavily critical about what's happening with X-Men, I recognize that he also does amazing stuff. So I'm very much hoping that Decorum is part of the amazing stuff that he does. He should have absolute control. So any failures of this book will be completely him. We can't blame Marvel editors or Teeny Howard or anyone else. It'll be just him. And everything that I've heard is all of his independent stuff is great. So I'm looking forward to this. Those are the three books that's coming up this Wednesday.
Perfect. And Larry Comics Incorporated, there's never been a better time to be a comic fan. Look at all that comes out, every genre, all the formats. The ceiling on quality raises every week. The material is translated to film, TV, and beyond. Absolutely, it is a great time to be a comic book fan. That's why we're here each and every week with the Comics Aficionados. That's why I release 2 videos a day. I think Perch is releasing 2 videos a day. Ash is basically the Joe Rogan of comic book YouTube. Has great in-depth, great conversations for people on YouTube. We all love it here, and we definitely agree with you. It's a great time to be a comic book fan, and hopefully things get even better in the next few years. Pele, what are you recommending at the store this week?
Okay, I think I believe, now I could be mistaken on this, but let me look and see what we've got on our number one on that. Oh, it was Marvel number 1, actually, was our store pick, because beautiful Alex Ross cover. Just kind of a lot of reprints and stuff like that of books of days gone by. And look at the True Believers that are coming out, and also the dollar comics from DC. I keep harping on those, but it's $1. And these are really, really great deals for $1. And just some excellent keys from years gone by, and something to look into every week when you go to your comic shop.
Yeah, there's a Detective 38 facsimile edition out this week.
Yeah. Those sell really well.
Perfect. Tabby Smoka is recommending Flash 750, Birthright, Spawn, and X-Men and Amazing Spider-Man. I didn't realize Spawn came out this week. Is 750 any good? It's all right, but the last story is amazing, and I'm hoping to talk to Perch about that real soon, about what we kind of gleaned from it and go into a little bit in depth. Hopefully Perch will join me. Who knows? Maybe he'll turn me down.
I'll be happy to join you. Yeah, I liked 750. I thought of the anniversary issues, this was a stronger one. I agree. It ended very strong. I think it did give a lot of hope for what 5G was going to be, and I felt it confirmed a lot of what we suspected it was going to be. So I thought that was a really strong issue. Daredevil, I thought was really strong this week, and continues to just be a really good kind of reconstruction of that character. No, there are a lot of good books out, and I think, as some people have said, it is a good time if you're a fan, even though it doesn't seem like it, because there's a lot of things people are saying, and like the situation we were just talking about with Shaun Gordon Murphy, it's easy to get really wrapped up in that and feel like the creators all hate you and they're trying to attack you, and maybe some are, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of comic books out there, and there's a lot of choice and a lot of options. And by the way, while this situation that will not be named is going on in the world, a lot of comic shops will mail your comics to you. And so make sure if you've got a pull box, something you reach out, and if you're worried about going to a location. But there are good comics out there. It's a shame it just takes so much work to find them in a lot of cases. But do yourself a favor and at least watch one YouTube channel like this one, or mine, or Ash's, or anybody's, that is at least giving you some recommendations that are not all doom and gloom. Because if you consume only that stuff, you're building a pretty bad bubble for yourself. You start to worry the comic industry is going to collapse. The reality is there's too many comics out. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, if you saw my review this morning through Marvel's catalog, I mean, a half an hour going through their previous catalog, that beat me. I felt like I was in a fight and I lost. There's too much. So, but the bright side of that is there's a lot of options out there.
All right. So those are your recommendations?
Yeah, I should do more, but that works for me. Go for it.
Perfect. Metatron's Cube is recommending Gods and Gear #3 from Alterna Comics, as well as Blood Realm #1, Volume 3. Absolutely, Blood Realm from Robert Geronimo. Excellent series, very cool visuals. Jeff Habib is recommending Detective Comics, Daredevil, Batman, Last God, Curse of the White Knight. Man, you got really good taste in comics. RPD is recommending the X-Men are villains, Iron Man is dead, Carol Danvers is murdered, and G.I. Joes are Bernie Bros. Well, there you go. He's not recommending anything. He's salty. RPD is salty. Who knew it? Dion is recommending Justice League 42, Batman 90, Batman Curse of the White Knight #7, X-Men Fantastic Four #2, Monstrous. All right, I'm not saying those names. Flash 750 and Rising Stars and Birthright 42. Paley recommends 89 and whatever, man. All right, Doc, what are you recommending this week?
You know what? I'm actually going to pick up the. I don't know if it comes out this week or next week or whatever, but the I Wolverine. I am going to pick it up because it's Larry Hama doing Albert and LCD after 20 some years. So I am going to pick that up. It's the only thing about their Iron Man 2020 I give any damns about. Let's see. X-Men #8 comes out this week, and I am going to get that. I think everything by Alterna. Go pick up Alterna. Oh, you know what else is coming out this week? Punisher Soviet #5. Definitely go pick that up.
It's a great book.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. All right, Doc. So those are your recommendations.
Those are.
So Daredevil 19 came out this week. Marco Cicchetto is back on the art. It is absolutely amazing. Maybe it's the best comic out there. It's definitely the best comic at Marvel. I'd say it's better than X-Men from Jonathan Hickman right now. Just flat out fantastic, amazing comic book. Chip Zdarsky is on his A game on that one. Also, I'm definitely highly recommending Justice League 42. It's the third of Robert Venditti's run on Justice League. He's getting a short trial run before they do this 5G stuff, and it's been really good. And this was the best issue yet. Also, Spider-Man Noir #1, blew me away. The visuals from Juan Ferreira on that one were just fantastic. I don't really know Margaret Stoll, but I had a bad impression of her. She definitely doesn't ruin that book by any means. It's definitely well executed. A lot of fun to read. If you're looking for something fun, it's a little bit out of it's not in continuity, but Spider-Man Noir #1 was excellent. All right, I think that should just about do it. Second Street Marvel says he liked Justice League. You have a good taste in comic books as well, sir. And thank you for joining us. Love Second Street. I think I saw Stacks in there as well. Had a lot of great viewers today. Great turnout. Please come back tomorrow for the cancel culture panel. Should be very good. Got a great group of people with you. I will see you all next week for the Comics Aficionados, after the panel tomorrow. So
all right.
Bye,